I have the next question is for Len Islifson, and I'd like Councillor Black to respond. Len, looking back over the past 4 years, what do you think Errol Black could and should have done differently in his representation of the Riverview Ward?
Well, you know, I'm certainly not running a race to say what, you know, that Errol's a bad guy and things like that. He's done a great job in our ward. But when I look around and I'm knocking on doors, and I've knocked on like 700 doors already this year, and I walk out on a street that's paved down the middle with gravel on the outsides of both sides of the street, you know, there's things that can be done. We have a dog park in the East End. It's great. A lot of people are using it. It's a fantastic idea. But we have a playground down the street from me that was there when I moved to Brandon, moved back to Brandon, that is, and the play structure is always the same. It's the same swing set. There's things that we need to do for our youth that aren't being done. So it's just, I think we can do more, and we need to really get out there and do that.
Councillor Black?
Well, I think Len is a very nice fellow, I'm sure. But in my 12 years on council, I've never seen him at a ward meeting. I've never had a call from him saying, what about the playground structure down the hill from me? What about the streets above Victoria Avenue East? In fact, I have been pushing to get the south end, the south of Victoria, sorted out. We're going to rehabilitate the park down at the townhouses in the immediate future. These things are happening. There are other issues that I've been working on. Check with all the other people who live in the East End for an indication of what I've been doing in my time on council.
Next question from the panel is, I'm seeing Alison Dowd of the Brandon Sun.
All right, we'll stick to this. I like the fire we're lighting here. To candidates Eastleson, Montague, and Treboyer. The issue of youth versus experience has certainly come up this evening already. Do you believe there comes a point in time where a city councillor is simply too, pardon my bluntness, old to serve in that role? And secondly, what assets do you bring to the table that would compensate for your lack of experience? And of course, we'll get the incumbents in all 3 wards to respond to that if they wish. We'll start with Len Eastleson.
Thank you. I'm not going to compare saying someone's too old to run for city council. That's definitely not a fact. I think what you need, though, is you need to get some new blood. When I'm out there, you see the youth population. Are they knocking on the doors? Are they phoning people? Are they coming out to vote? You know, they're not even doing that. They're not knocking on a door that someone's been running for 20 years. I believe at our age, when we come in there, I'm 48 years old, I believe I have a connection with the youth, that I may get more phone calls. We need to create more opportunities. My son moved to Alberta because there was no job opportunities. If we can work with the youth and form, not necessarily a youth council, but youth workshops, youth work groups, create some dialogue with you, get their input on the city. They're the ones who are going to be running the city from 20 years from now. We need their involvement.
Thank you, and I'll ask Errol to respond if he wishes to.
Well, you give your blood to the Red Cross. That's how you get new blood. The idea of connecting with youth, I probably have as good a relationship with young people and others in Riverview Ward as Len seems to think he does. In fact, I have committed a lot of time to the East End Community Center, supported it in every way I can, and I mean, that's not an issue. Are you there to fight for the programs, the expansion of the community centers and so on? That's what I've been doing every budget year for the last 4 years. I've had proposals to get more resources
Thank you,
for the community centers. So.
If the residents in the Richmond ward vote for Stephen Montague, they get both youth and experience. I've been elected 3 times at the university, twice as president, 3 times to a provincial board to represent over 42,000 students. I've served as a youth councillor at Brandon City Council, an initiative I also pushed to implement. I presented to legislative committees at the Manitoba Legislature and had my proposal adopted, which would now set the provincial voting date in October instead of June, so that more youth can have the opportunity to vote in provincial elections. And I've had many proposals at the federal and municipal level adopted as well, including parking bylaws, environmental sustainable issues, the Youth Council, and others. So it's not a youth versus experience here, it's who's going to effectively represent the residents better.
Yes, Margot, you can respond.
Well, I do think youth representation is very important. And there's a time and there's a place for that, and I think that will happen. But what's more important to me, experience is more important, passion is more important, ideas, getting along with your constituent, getting along with the people you work with, knowing the ropes. And age is a relative term. You're only as old as you think you are. And I think I'm young. And I have a son that's Stephen's age, and I love him dearly. Thank you.
So Margot, I guess your dentist is an octogenarian then?
No, no, no. My dentist is an expert at being a good dentist.
Thank you. We'll get the challenger in Green Acres Ward to answer that question as well.
I don't think it's all about age. I think that in the Green Acres Ward, the demographics have changed. We've got people from diverse backgrounds, all ages, and I think that I'm on the pulse of what's going on in their lives. I have a mother that lives in the core area. I'm concerned about her safety, as I'm concerned about the people of the Green Acres Ward, what the sidewalks are for them, the potholes, and how it affects them. I have a daughter that's in college. I wonder about education opportunities and the costs involved in that. I'm involved in, of course, you know, in labor issues. I'm concerned about their working lives. So I feel like I'm at a prime age. I don't have any problem or concern with the age of the incumbent, but I feel like I'm on the pulse of the issues. I think what's needed in the Green Acres Ward is we need a more effective
Thank you very much.
Network.
Councillor Jessman.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. This is a topic that's has to have two sides to every story. As far as being connected in Green Acres Ward, I don't think you could have more connection with youth and defend them than I have. The time that I've been on council, we've gone to great lengths to make youth, whether they're able to afford different things or they're elite, as we mentioned, we've been trying to make it a better place for them. One would be the youth centers that were set up in the east and the west end. That is
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm seeing that John Lareggio from CKLQ is the next question.
An outgoing councillor, Doug Patterson, recently brought forth a concept that he calls house plans that has been put on hold until later this year. My question is, we've heard a lot about affordable housing, whether you're buying or renting. My question, and I'm going to put this out there to any candidate who wants to answer it, what role, if any, should Brandon City Hall play in the housing market? Should it be left to private developers? Should the city have a partnership with private developers? Should the city, with the land it owns, be it on Veterans Way or elsewhere, be putting up housing? Mr. Jessamine has indicated he'd like to answer. We'll start with Don.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, John. There is where experience is very valuable. In the early 70s, we did become developers. The city of Brandon was developing land, and it was a disaster. We didn't get out of the problem until the late 90s. And as far as getting back in as a developer, I'll certainly, when I'm back on council, I'll be against this. The concept that come forward, it has some good, valuable work has gone into it. But I'll certainly never take taxpayers' dollars and have another department set up to handle this like we did in the 70s.
Thank you. Councillor Jessamine, who's next?
Darlene Paquette.
Perfect.
Affordable housing. When I worked at the Brandon Friendship Center in the mid-90s, it was an issue back then. The only reason why it's an election topic this year is because it's muffin-topped and it's overflowed because of the high increase of population here, and it's affecting other income levels. Affordable housing, how should we handle it? The City of Brandon should be in support at the civic level, as well as the province and the federal level, to support initiatives like the Massey Project. That is a partnership between the Canadian Mental Health Association, the Brandon Friendship Center, and Habitat for Humanity. Those partnerships with other nonprofit organizations can be successful. You'll see.
Errol?
Thank you, John. The city's involved with every development that takes place. With private developers, we zone land, We help ensure that the infrastructure goes into place and so on. With the Massey building, we committed resources in kind and money. We're always involved. We should be doing more to work with creating rental accommodation, because that's where the shortages are. That's where they've been for 12 years. The house plans doesn't provide for that, and I think that's the failure of that proposal, but definitely the city has to be involved. We talk about infrastructure. What could be more important than housing for the citizens of this city?
John.
Mr. Edmonds?
Michael Bletherwick as well.
I'd like to support what Darlene said, that the city needs to encourage and facilitate partnerships. There's a lot of groups interested in housing in the city, and the city should play a role in encouraging and facilitating those partnerships. I spoke with a woman today who lived in her car for a number of months when she first moved to Brandon, simply because there's nowhere to live, and she's now living with her niece. The Massey building is an excellent example of what can be done when partnerships are formed, and there are a number of groups, and these partnerships can be expanded, and I think there's no end of good things that can be done.
What role then specifically? The Massey building is a fine example, but it's a vacant building that was downtown, and there aren't that many buildings that can be used for that type of a project. So what would you like to see done?
Specifically, the city owns a number of pieces of land in downtown and across the city, whether it's using the land in kind or selling the land and using the money from the land to support housing projects. There's no end of options that are out there, but the city can't be doing it alone. It has to be in collaboration and cooperation with other partners.
Mr. Blatherwick?
Thanks. I think the city should have incentives to build low affordable housing. But more so, I think it should be of a certain design. It shouldn't be row housing. Row housing just is one of the major complaints for anyone who's been in low-cost housing. It should be like Habitat for Humanity. They build standalone units, and that's what we should have.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, the city needs to continually set targets and goals. Specifically, what we need to do is take a look at the waiting lists of the income groups and the type of income as far as rent that is needed to be provided. There's 350 roughly seniors in that 15 to 22,000 age group. We need to specifically target the groups where we're having the issues with. And yeah, it should be set as far as long-term goals and numbered units with a sustainable investment each year.
Darlene, we'll get to you, but I would like to ask a sidebar question. We're talking a lot about affordable housing, but there's a group that we always seem to miss, and that is the middle income, the people that are working, trying to get into a house, that are renting, that can barely afford it, if at all. So what could be done for that particular group? Darlene?
Again, like we would partner with nonprofit organizations and build partnerships with all levels of government. I'm sure that there could be other incentives. For example, what the government does with the only 5% down, whatever, maybe that incentive can be 0% down and get mortgages to secure housing initiatives like that. The house plan that you were specifically speaking about that was proposed by Doug Patterson is very limited and only to working families with children or working families. But there's no indication like, would they be able to flip that house at some time and increase their revenue and move to a different area of town? Would they be able to use it as a rental property?